Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Beth Ann. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen a few photos from my recent trip to Ireland. I was there at the very beginning of November for about a week with my best friend, and it was a absolutely lovely trip. We spent lots of time outside, seeing sacred and historical sites, and it was just absolutely beautiful. We lucked out with gorgeous weather, even in early November. So just a wonderful trip. But one of the things that we did was pop into a few bookstores. So one of the bookstores that we went into was called Bridge Street Books, and it's in Wicklow Town, County Wicklow. And it was a lovely, lovely little independent bookshop. And I got a little stack of books from that bookshop. So I'm just going to share those with you all today. So the first one I'll talk about, if you've been around my channel before, you know that I have a love for coffee table type books that have gorgeous photos, lots of art, and some descriptive text. So I just fell in love with this one, Ireland, A Luminous Beauty. And it is just all about the landscape of Ireland, natural and cultural, but the pictures are all beautiful pictures that capture sort of different light on the landscape. So here's one, and I know these are going to show up terribly. Here's another one in my video because my quality is never that great, but I'm really excited to dig into this beautiful book at some point. Okay, and then the next book I'm going to mention, this was a total impulse browse buy. This is called The Opposite of Butterfly Hunting by Evanna Lynch. It's a memoir. Evanna Lynch is a young actress. She played Luna Lovegood in the Harry Potter movies, and I think she was like 14 at the time of casting, so that was in the early 2000s. So she's maybe a little bit older than me, mid-30s. The beauty of this cover is what first caught my eye, and then I saw her name and that it was a memoir. I'm always curious about memoirs. But this is really interesting. So I didn't know that Ivana suffers from an eating disorder. And so the back of the book says Ivana has long been viewed as a role model for people recovering from anorexia. And the story of her casting has reached almost mythic proportions. Here, in her extraordinary memoir, Ivana confronts all the complexities and contradictions within herself and reveals how she overcame a serious eating disorder, worked to conquer her self-hate, and began to confront her fear of leaving the neatness and safety of girlhood for the unpredictable journey of being a woman, all in the spotlight of international fame. So I'm curious to read this, and it has a beautiful cover. And then the other thing that I picked up was a bunch of poetry collections. So Wicklow County is where Seamus Heaney, I hope I'm pronouncing that from, but the great Irish poet, is from, and he actually has spent a lot of time in Wicklow Town. He and his wife owned a house down there, although I think she now has pretty much mostly been in Dublin since his death. But they knew him, in this town. And we also, as part of being in that county, we went for a lovely hike in Devil's Glen, which is a beautiful natural area where he would go to write quite often. So since we were in that area, we asked who are some local poets and who are some other Irish poets that we should try when we were in this bookstore. And so the bookseller gave us some fantastic, I actually haven't read these, but sounded like fantastic recommendations. She basically just pulled out all the poets who either were local and or were Irish, published by Irish presses. And so I selected 4. So the first one is hyper-local. This is Jane Clarke, The River, and she is local to Wicklow where we were. And let's see, the back says, the textured language, vivid imagery, and musical rhythms of Jane Clarke's debut collection convey a distinctive voice and vision. With lyrical grace, these poems contemplate shadow and sorrow as well as creativity and connection. The threat of loss is never far away, but neither is delight in the natural world and what it offers. Rooted in rural life, this poet of poignant observation achieves restraint and containment while communicating intense emotions. The rivers that flow through the collection evoke the inevitability of change and our need to find again and again how to go on. So that sounds lovely. I am all about poetry that is rooted in the natural world. I think that's probably my favorite kind of poetry. So I snapped up Jane Clarke, again, a local Wicklow County poet. And then also along the lines of the natural world, I was really curious about Catriona O'Reilly. So this is her second collection, The Sea Cabinet. She is an award-winning Irish poet and critic, and this one also is going to be focused on the natural world. Catriona O'Reilly's poetry is remarkable for its precise observation of the natural world. Her second collection, The Sea Cabinet, broadens that clear-sighted vision in poems also haunted by history, consolidating the achievement of her debut volume. Her title poem conjures the vanished world of the whaling industry and serves as a starting point for other acute meditations on natural and cultural obsolescence. Yet the habitual concerns of the lyric self are present too in poems which enact the dilemmas and anxieties of the individual amidst a rapidly changing environment. So that's totally me. That's great. And then the two others that I selected were not local poets, and their work doesn't necessarily focus on the natural world, but they are Irish poets published by Irish presses whose work sounded really interesting. So this first slim one, The Talk of the Town, by a poet whose name I'm not going to be able to pronounce because I don't know Irish at all. I will copy this name down in the description box below and links to all of these books as well. But a different Catriona, she is also an award-winning poet. And the thing I love about this collection is that she writes in the Irish language. And so we get facing pages with the original poem written in Irish and then an English translation. The translations were done by someone named Peter Fallon. So her poetry has been described as powerful, courageous, sassy, and important. Her mastery of Irish and sense of being at home in tradition and modernity is evident in poems set in the 17th century, poems framed by Gaelic mythology, and in intensely personal lyrics. The poems are full of passion. Her romantic sensibility contrasts with the more urgent contemporary notes of the collection's concluding series of outraged poems haunted by memories of border crossings near her home place. So I'm really excited for that one. And then finally, Paula Meehan, well-known poet, lives in Dublin, from Dublin. And this was, she's a lot more established and has a much larger body of work, as you can see from the thickness of this volume compared to the other collections. So this is As If by Magic, Selected Poems by Paula Meehan. And so the others that I had selected were all very new poets who haven't written much yet. They're sort of getting started. So I also wanted to just contrast that with a more established female Irish poet who had a larger body of work for me to explore and has been writing longer. So that's why I picked up Meehan's book. So let's see, these are poems published between 1991 and 2016 from various collections. A great deal has changed in the world in the arc of time covered by these poems, and those changes are noted and considered by poems that are remarkable for their clear-eyed witness. Meehan's devotion to and mastery of her craft has always been one of the key signatures of her work, as has been her immersion in her beloved native Dublin. In her selected poems, we see this and more. Her uncompromising engagement with the politics of gender and class, her love of the natural world and her grief at what threatens it, her holistic and visionary impulse to bless the creation, to be grateful for her place in it. So sounds like I will like these poems too, most likely. So anyway, those are, that's my book haul. Especially for these poetry books, I'm really curious if anybody has heard of these poets, if you know their work. I think Paula Meehan is probably the most likely one that folks will have heard of. So yeah, if you have any thoughts on these selections, let me know. You'll see them start popping up on my booktube over the next several months. So with that, I'll sign off. I hope you're all having a good time reading whatever you're reading, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.